ZNS Network. ZNS Network. Bahamas.
The views expressed on this show, interview, or program are not necessarily the views expressed by the ZNS Radio Network and, by extension, the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. What's the secret of change? We don't fight the old. Instead, we focus on building the new. Welcome to the Table of Change. Come on in and have a seat at our table.
It's another Tuesday evening. It's August 13, 2024. And guess what? From 8 to 9, it's Table of Change. I'm Jacqueline Fernando Moxie.
Table of Change, Jackie. I was just so excited. Jacqueline Fernando Moxie, Tamara Fox Smith. We are so happy to have another Tuesday of Table of Change. Guess what, Jackie?
I can't guess.
Okay. Tonight, the topic for tonight is the role of a man in the home and as a father. And we're going to welcome a guest tonight. This guest, he was born December 28, 1966. He has a beautiful wife. They are a powerful couple. They were married for 27 years and they have 2 children. He is a religious man. And not only is he a religious man, he attends Holy Cross Anglican Church. He's an Anglican man. He is an active member, the president of the Anglican Churchmen, also a part of vestry. He also has the voice of an angel. He sings in the choir. He's a part of the Seal and Discovery. His hobbies are darts, singing, and grilling. He is a master on the grill. I have sampled some of his delicacies, and I'm here to confirm that he is a master on the grill. For 7 years, he was a president of a track coach, and he held the parent role on that team as a track coach. He's a businessman, an entrepreneur. He's operated movie theaters and countless businesses. He does volunteer work. Volunteer work is a major part of his life. He volunteers with civic programs and also through church. Let's welcome to Table of Change, Mr. Christian Knowles.
Thank you, Tamara. That was very nice of you. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to engaging in conversation with you guys. And it's a very good thing that you guys are doing, I see. And let's just keep it going, and you guys stay strong and stay in it and do it for everybody and continue to have that personality that just rolls out and just says, hey, come on in, let's discuss anything at this table of change.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said that. Table of Change is what we do. We are here to discuss. We are here to bring the issue to the table and talk about it in an avenue of change. Now, also, listeners, I said to you, the role of a man in the home and the role of a man as a father. But please give me a few minutes of your time. I want you to listen to a speech I heard more than 5 years ago. And this speech was very powerful. It's going to take a few minutes, but I do encourage you to listen. And not only listen with your ears, but listen with your heart. Because it really shows the pain that a man goes through when he's fighting to play a role in the lives of his wife and in the role in the lives of his children. This is a true story. I won't say the name of the gentleman that wrote it because I feel it's so impactful that I wish he was in studio, but he gave me permission to read it to you. A Father's Journey. Becoming a father was one of the most joyous experiences of my life. I was filled with excitement and amazement, coupled with fear and humility. I was thrilled and awed that I could be a part of creating something so precious, so innocent, so beautiful. At the same time, I was frightened by doubts about whether I could live up to the responsibility. Yet, I was deeply humbled that God blessed me with children, knowing many men who desired to be fathers but were not successful. The early years were filled with joy and challenges. My first child was born when I was the age of 26, still trying to figure out my life and my role. But, of course, I thought I was a man. Although my relationship with her mother ended shortly after her birth. My love for her grew stronger. Just a year later, I was fortunate enough to meet my wife and have two other children. Those two children brought so much joy into my life, but not neglecting my responsibility to my first child. Every weekend, she was at my house, and I accomplished the task of blending my family. When my wife became pregnant with our second child, we received devastating news from the nurse that he was developing slowly and might be born with some physical or mental disability. The news was crushing for a young couple, especially in our early walk of faith. We prayed and we cried all night. The next day, I emailed my bishop seeking spiritual intervention, realizing this was bigger than us. He met with us, laid hands, and I'm here to tell you he was born smart, intelligent, witty, and a real smarty pants. I am proud of all of my children. I am proud of the memories that I make with my children. A father's role as a family man can be a man's most valuable possession. As a father, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. I gladly embraced my role as a protector, provider, and priest of the home. Some of my most memorable memories are with my children. And not the big things, it's the small moments, just hearing them laugh and figure out that I've developed a blended family by hearing their laughter throughout the home. Being a father was my most prized role. Just watching as they accomplish things that I didn't even think or dream of accomplishing. But I'm here to say, the trials came, separation happened. A depression hit the country and my wife lost her job due to downsizing. I was self-employed and my income was stretched to sustain a household of 4 that could barely sustain the household before. Not long after losing her job, my wife made it painfully clear that she could no longer live under the money-tight conditions. She packed up and took the kids to her mom's house. Nothing could change her mind, and nothing I can say. I couldn't even say, you leave, but leave my children, due to the fact that the reality was that I and my salary could not sustain my household. Can you imagine? My pride was crushed. My inner thoughts of being a man, everything that gave me the pride instilled in me of who I am was tied up around providing for my wife and my children. I cherish every memory with them. The separation tested my faith and identity. I missed daily interactions and struggled to maintain influence in their lives. During this time, I faced legal battles. But I turned to the Father and I got on my knees and I asked God to sustain me. And only through His grace that I saw changes starting to be made. Fatherhood isn't just about being present. It's about love, resilience, and relying on faith when things get tough. To all fathers out there, remember, it's okay to be vulnerable, to lean on your faith and not continue to lean on your understanding, no matter the challenges. I thank you for listening to that speech. That speech really helped me as an individual. Because I am the product of a single parent, anytime I would become in defense of my mother, if someone said anything about a single mother, I would immediately get irritated and take defense from my mother because I know the sacrifices, as many of you listening know the sacrifices that are made when you are raised by a single mother. But after hearing that speech, I began to put down my defenses. And I began to realize there's two sides of the coin. I began to open my heart and listen with my heart when you hear the stories that are being told by men throughout the Bahama land. And Christian, we've had men call into the show and talk about hurt and pain, even when it wasn't the topic at hand. And one of the things that I brought you here for, Christian, is I know you are a man of God. I know you are a family man. Help us to understand, those of us that are from single parent homes, to help us have an understanding and a respect of a man's role in the home. Could you help us with that, Krishna?
Well, I mean, the speech that you so elegantly read out to us really covered so much ground, and all the foundations are covered there. I mean, the part about protector, provider, and priest, that's one part of it. And then you have the other part where he felt as though he was lacking in regards to being able to live up to what he thought his role was. And a lot of times, what happens is, and I'm not a psychiatrist, please. I don't want anyone calling in here thinking doctor or anything. I know I'm just speaking from my heart, and I'm just speaking as my own experiences have been, whether they've been personal or whether I've been on the other side listening to people. One of the greatest things that's been happening nowadays is that men are now starting to speak to each other, and that is very important. You'll now actually see commercials on TV that encourage people to just call and speak to somebody on whatever their issue is. We cannot handle these sorts of things by ourselves. And yes, prayer is very important, and church is very important. But your friends, the people that you surround yourself with, if you cannot open up and have serious conversations with them, then you are going to bottle yourself up and going to frustrate yourself and not be able to clearly see the finish line. And a lot of the times, what gets lost in the middle of that is the relationships between your children, your wife, or your child's mother, or whatever the case might be. The role of the father has been a role that's been in the Bahamas, has been kind of like blurred for a little while, and it's not because it's no fault. I mean, there's fault all around, but in all essence, in everything that we have to look at, you have to look at yourself first. Are you taking the rule seriously? Did you run away from it? Okay, you have a lot of situations where people were young and they weren't ready for it, and they therefore got scared, and their only defense was to run. I mean, that's all they could have done was run away from it, and that's not correct. That's not right. But that's just what happened, you know. And this is where a lot of bitterness comes in as well, and you have to be very careful with bitterness. If you don't let that go, that's going to stay with you and stay with your relationships for a long time, maybe your entire lifetime. And a lot of times you hear the stories about the disagreements between the men and the women in regards to bringing the children up, and then you have a lot of, this one's jealous of that one, and this is that, and then the child gets in the middle, and then all sorts of things happen that cause the relationship of the father and mother to go separate directions, and then in a situation where a lot of times the men are no longer involved in the bringing up of their children, okay? Now, to go to you and talk about the single mother part of it, the single mothers have been the backbone, I think, of the Bahamas for a long time, and that doesn't mean that I'm on board and everything else like that. That's just how it was. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is, you know. I mean, if we're gonna be real, let's be real, you know. And that's why it's so important for us men to understand that the role that we have is so important. It's the encouragement, it's the love, it's the being. There's something different about a man and a mother's love. Okay, the mother's love, you can't beat that. Okay, I ain't even getting into that. But there's something about the man's love for children that the children really feel it. You know what I mean? And if you get away from that, then you know you in some cases you got some underdevelopment going on. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, I'm not a doctor. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not a doctor. I'm just putting logic to this, and I'm just speaking. Okay, I was a track coach. Okay, and a lot of times the children looked up at me as a father figure. I mean, that's just how it is. Mm-hmm. Any type of coach, any type of sporting coach, that is what happens. And if you take the time and spend time with those kids, and then also speak to the parents of the kids, mm-hmm. and you'll see that sometimes the parents say, man, I tell them the same thing, but when you say it to them, it makes sense. You know, it's just, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put it that way. But she said, no, keep talking to them. Keep talking to them. Keep, almost like thank God someone's taking the time to try and assist.
But Mr. Knowles, I think what you just said about the children and the mother saying the kids would listen to you, that's basically the way it is even in schools. When you take your children to school, your children have a math problem to do, they listen to the teacher, and that's not a bad thing. So we want you to be a father to the children.
Remember that you can't send me things to the phone.
We want you to be mothers to the children in school. And that happens in different relationship. Even sometimes it could be husband and wife. If a wife is going to say something to the husband, I'm telling you, if a good friend say it or if it's said in an environment, in a grouping, they will just take it different. I don't know what caused that, but that's the way it is. But we are not even concerned about who they take it from. What I love is when they take it and put it into action. And that really makes it really good. Something what Tamara said, but the gentleman and the kids, the wife taking the children with her because she's not working. Now, it's not because she's not working. He's working, but she's going to take the kids.
I mean, I think what she said there too was the fact that he was okay with that only because the job that he had, he realized that he couldn't sustain them there. You see, the thing is, right, and I want to stay on one fact, and that is this. Men are now starting to talk, which is something that never used to happen before. Mm-hmm. I had a seminar at church, and I brought in a renowned psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Sean Knowles. And he came in and he spoke of not just your physical health. Right. He spoke of your mental health. And what's happening a lot of times when you go to Cursillo or Discovery or any church that's having a program where they have men collected together. Now, see, they have to be by themselves now. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right? Understand that part. Mm-hmm. If they're by themselves, if there are other women around, if there are women around, they might climb up. But when they are with themselves and they feel protected, they feel like they're in a protected environment, they tend to open up and start to talk about it, okay? And that's very important because a lot of times, there's a movie out right now called In and Out or something like that, Inside Out or something like that. It's a movie. It's supposed to be for kids, right? And it shows the different emotions inside of a child and inside of people in general. And one of the lines in the movie is, you're bottling us up. You're not allowing us to speak. You're not allowing us out. And when men, or anyone for that matter, can't really speak out or whatever, they get frustrated. And frustration only leads to, a path down the road that can be, it's not going to be a good path, And,
in the home, as a wife, women, I think, they love when the fathers speak out. In homes, we actually, we would say the mother gets all the love, right? But mothers kind of push the children to make sure they're showing the father the love because we are secure and we know that the love is there. And I find myself pushing and making sure that the children pay attention to their dad, just to make sure the relationship is kept and the communication is kept open. Because children, they kind of love when dad is doing it over mom. So we really
but
need
Jackie,
to encourage that.
That's a strong. I'm so sorry if I cut you off, but that is a strong point of why we're talking about the role of a father. Because you are mature in your parenting, because you are mature in your faith, that's the right thing to do, right?
Yes.
But you have some mothers that challenge the father in the home. When the father says no, let's say it's as simple as getting a glass of water. The child turns to daddy and says, I want a glass of water. Daddy says no because it's bedtime and it's time for you to settle in. Mommy turns around to daddy in front of the child and said, why he can't have the water. As simple as that small act, what I'm telling the child? You don't have to listen to daddy. You only have to listen to mommy.
Wrong move right there. You have to be so careful what is said in front of the children. I also want to remind our listening audience that you can call in. I'll remind you of the numbers. It's 325-5403. on the Family Islands is 300-8255. We want to hear from you. Please call in. It's a conversation that's including you as well.
Tomorrow, one of the things that, we speak of it and is we always talk about the importance of church and that sort of stuff, right? We always bring that up. And the importance of church is one thing, but the importance, I think, of males actually participating and leading in the church is a part that we need to get kind of like built back up. It's good that, people want to lead and that sort of stuff, but it again, and please, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not chauvinistic or nothing like that. I'm just saying that naturally, when men lead a certain ministry or when men lead in general or seen leading, that tends to carry a lot of weight.
Yes.
And it's just how that is in the church. It's the same way in your home. You have to show the leadership, and you have to be allowed to show the leadership. And if you fall down and make a mistake, you don't criticize right out in the public, and that's not easy to do. I mean, that's not easy not to do. Because sometimes you just want to react and say, "Why did you do that?" But sometimes you should hold that and just wait until you're by yourselves to get to it. It ain't happen all the time. You know what I mean? But it's going back to saying the same thing you said about the glass of water.
And what's a good encouragement for men is to whatever you want done in public, do it from in the home. Just be nice when you're by yourself. I assure you, if you're nice to your children, nice to your wife while you're home by yourself, you have nothing to worry about in public. It would all just shine in the public because guess what? No one has to pretend. We have a lot of people pretending when they get out, just trying to make it look good. And as soon as the audience is gone, then it goes back to the same old story. We want to encourage, and I know it's hard for men because there's some men. I wish someone could call in to give us some legal, put some legal stuff on the table because single men, if they're not married, I don't think they have as much. It's like the ladies can dismiss them totally from their children.
The men don't really get much play.
And so that is something that we really have to work on having the law change with that, because it seems as if they can't. If you're not married, you really have no say. And I think females are using that. They're using that where fathers cannot see their children. But one thing I want to say to men, if you know you love your child and you love them from the heart, something happens when that child grows up, even though you couldn't play a big role in that child's life. Put aside what you have for that child. Still send it for that child. Don't let that distance you. Because faith have a way of when that child grow up, whenever you meet, the love will just connect. And that's just what happens. So I want to encourage you not to let it go because they're spiting you when the kids are young. Those children are going to grow up.
And we have to be careful also when we're talking on these types of topics that we don't give the kudos to some of the men that are out there doing their
Great
job,
jobs.
and they're doing it as single fathers as well. I mean, you have some
Being
situations,
the mother and father.
That's right. You have some situations where the wife might have gotten sick, and she can no longer really carry the role out, and the man has to basically step up and be both. You have some situations where they didn't get along, but the father was the one that got custody and is the one taking care of the kids. I have at least 3 examples right off the top of my head that I could give you all about that. Okay, one good friend of mine who lives in Norman's Key, when he was younger and he got married and his marriage didn't work out and everything, he did everything for those children, and those children love him to death. My brother-in-law took he had custody of his two daughters, and he did a wonderful job with them. And then another friend of mine who's in the ACM, the Anglican Church Men, his wife was ill for many years, and he did a fabulous job getting those kids. And she still was doing her part as well. But I'm just talking about stepping up and really, really pushing through.
Mr. Knowles, we had someone on the show last week. I'm so sorry I didn't get his number. I hope he's listening. He was almost in tears because he's trying to say, I did good by my children. And so yes, we really have to be careful. We're not saying we're just sharing. So please call us. Call in 325-5403, 300-8255. And if you want a commercial to be aired on this show, you can call 449-9106.
Okay, well, I thought I was taking a break. Yeah, but like I just think that the role that we have to play is truly a supreme role, and I love the thing that I love that when he said protector, provider, and priest. Protector and provider comes kind of naturally, and the priest part of it is the part that a lot of us have to work on, because if your children see you, like I say, if they see you active and they see you in the church and praying and getting involved and in volunteer work and that sort of stuff, because that volunteer work is not easy either. Going and assisting the less fortunate, going and visiting the sick, and just taking the time to give people just a little bit of attention. And a lot of times that's all it is. You just need to give them a little bit of attention. And the same thing can be said about living with your children, dealing with your children. Just give them the attention. Just have the respect, man. You know what I mean? Just have the respect among each other, and just give them the love and everything from your heart. But again, I'm speaking from my own side of this table. There's going to be some other people out there that have a completely different outlook and have had a completely different experiences. And all you can do sometimes is listen to what they have to say and try to help them through whatever it is they're dealing with. And sometimes you have to realize that you can't do it. You're not experienced enough to do it. And if that happens and you get in a position like that, then you can, if you have someone that you can tell them to go and speak to, whether it's a psychiatrist, whether it's a priest, whether it's, a prayer warrior, whatever the case might be.
Find someone.
Find somebody. Don't just leave it there. Don't just leave it there. We have enough going on around here. We don't need tragedies to continue to happen, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Miss Smith?
I'm going to jump in with the second part of the letter. Of the speech. This is the part that really opened my heart and opened my understanding. So bear with me. Let me read another part of it. This is after the wife left, and he's talking about how he felt. He said, "My title as a father was challenged. I was on the verge of being demoted from a father to a baby daddy. To be a father while living with your children is sometimes stressful, but trying to father them while living somewhere else can be extremely difficult. Here are some small things as fathers we sometimes take for granted. You get to greet them every morning and tuck them in at night. You can help with homework. The joy and the annoyance of coming home to daddy, 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 daddy. You're there when they have questions about boys or girls, about God, about life. But here's what happens when you become a single father. When you become a single father and now you become a guest in that home, when you come around, they've learned new things that you didn't teach them. They'll grow faster and eat more when you're not there every day. You can't be spontaneous. You have to plan everything to make sure it's okay with the mother and they're available for that weekend. You have to fight for every influence. You're never doing enough, according to your baby mama. For me, losing my children was like losing my sense of purpose. Wow. I was angry, lonely, confused, hurting, and deep down inside, I wanted to know why me? Every time I visited the kids, I was greeted by a very angry, malicious woman who would insult and demean me as if it was a prerequisite for me to have to see my children. I went from seeing them every day to every other day, to seeing them on weekends to every other weekend. I didn't just fall off from my kids, but from God. And the more I fell, the deeper and in trouble I found myself. When I read that, my heart really opened up, because can you imagine, Jackie, you have to open the door to other influences on your children, and that would be hard. Don't you think that'd be hard for any parent to have to be open to that?
That's like, I have tears in my eyes. Like, that's very hard, and so you really have to be connected. That's when you need to have a circle of people. You have to feel God and other people around you.
Unfortunately, this is something that is heard out on the streets from many men over and over and over again. And for whatever reason, I'm going to come back to this word bitterness. The bitterness that, and you could hear in his own expression of how he's describing how he's being treated by the mother of his children. You can hear that she's very bitter. Very bitter for whatever reason. Okay? And we don't have the full story. Okay? And you know, I'm not going to sit in and try to say men are angels. I'm not going to do that. Okay? We are all of us have fallen short. Every last one of us.
Yeah.
Okay? But there are some that go down a path and continue to go down a path, and they don't make it easy for themselves. You know, so but I'm not saying that's what happened here. I have no idea what happened here.
Right.
I'm only saying that it sounds like the lady was very bitter, and whenever a lady gets very bitter, you got to check and see what kind of caused all that. You know, that's where this whole speaking and he's speaking and he's putting it out on paper. You know, I just hope that he was able to speak to, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a psychiatrist or whatever the case might be, so that he can get it out.
Yeah.
You know, because that frustration can come and worse things can happen. And the relationship could explode and turn into something of a nightmare.
Yeah, and I don't know, because now that this is the second part of the story,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a third part of the story, but I'm just going to stick with the second part and you know, just say to him, hang in there, keep your heart open and loving, because you know what, there's some families, some children who don't have mother or father, and I'm not saying mother or father is not alive. Mother and father are alive, and none of them is really nurturing the children. You know, they're damaging the children, and children, and then people, grandmothers want to help, grandparents want to help, and they cannot help. So in this instance, if at least if the children, the mother is not punishing you somehow, and she is still taking care of the children, just hold on to that. Hold on to that. They are well until we hear the ending part of the story.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, though, the development, unfortunately, with him not being around, he can't have his influence on the kids, and so therefore, they grow up not really knowing his views on things. It's all whatever they're growing up into. Remember, you and I had a conversation before we actually came on the air about how in your home, what you do, it gets replicated.
Yes, it's
Okay?
it's just important.
So if he is not there and he cannot offer his direction or his view on things, then to them it's Chinese. It might as well be a different language. Okay? And too often, the fathers or daddy, I don't even know which one is what it's supposed to be. Everyone could be a daddy, but you can't be a father. Is that how it goes? I can't remember. Everyone could be a daddy, but very few can be father. I can't remember exactly how it goes. But it basically means that you can be a biological father, but not really a father. You know what I mean? And the same can be true in some cases for mothers. We've seen that. We've seen that happen. You know, so I just think that hearing this story, this one particular story, you can hear the pain, you can hear the bitterness, you can hear a lot of emotions that are being shared there. And Tamara, I don't know if it's a third part. Is there a third part?
But I just got to expand on that piece in the story, because he was able to explain it to me. And I want you to picture it. I want you to picture him standing at the front door. There's two children on each side of the mother. And yes, money was tight. You remember he spoke about money
Yes.
being tight and financially, and that's the reason why she left.
Right.
So now that she left, you remember this man has to still sustain himself and now bring money into the household that he barely has. So what happens now is that instead of taking his last $50 and going out to the bar and getting drunk or doing anything else, he knocks on the door with his tail between his legs. Because remember, he said everything was caught up, his pride and everything was caught up with him being a father, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now he has to knock on the door and ask to see his children. But before he can see his children, sometimes the argument would go on for about 30 minutes with really bad words, high level, and the children are standing there.
Yeah.
And I say that because, like we say, and taken away, I don't know that story, but I know that picture. I know that scene because women, single mothers have been through it. And I just want men to hear that. I feel that we as women, we could understand when you don't have it. Because sometimes we don't have
Yeah.
it. But it's just my personal opinion. Don't attack me. I think the problem becomes when men act like it's not their responsibility. It's one thing to say to a woman, I don't have the $10 for the child to go to the field trip. But you have to remember that when you're out of the home, that mother has to turn to the child with the big eyes and the excited expression and say, you can't go on the field trip. And I agree. We have to remember our children is present and we should not show the father that attitude. But that's a lot of mental stress for the woman too, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that the mental stress and the she moved out. If I remember correctly, she moved to where her mother was to raise the children or whatever the case might be, and that sounds like that actually was a choice of hers that she made. I mean, again, you see, we're getting this portion of the story not complete, I don't think. There's some other factors that could have been here, and I don't want to interject, but there's some other factors that could have been here that led to her leaving as well, and it wasn't just all financial and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
there
yeah.
can be other
It has
things.
to be some other things.
So I don't want to speculate. We only can speak on what it is we actually heard, and I believe that taking this one case is a good thing for us to do, but we have to understand there are variables out there that are similar to this that cause the similar things to happen. And we're not going to be able to obviously fix it all in one sitting. That's something that's been going on for years.
Right.
And we have to just understand, us as men now, we have to understand that that's why planning a child is so important. And I'm not saying you can't
doesn't
do it all
happen
the
like,
time.
yeah, but it
but
doesn't
I'm
plan.
saying who you gonna have a child with is what I mean.
The choice is important.
You have to be of what they call even yoke, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, equally, yeah.
yoke. You see, and sometimes that ain't a normal person you would normally try to go out with or whatever the case might be. But hormones are hormones or whatever the case might happen,
Right.
and then things happen, and now you have a whole new situation on your plate. Okay? And it could have been started for fun or whatever the case might be, but now you're like, what did I just do?
Yeah, and then
you
we
know
have
what I
to
mean?
just.
What did I just
we
do?
have to just. If you put it on the plate, you need to eat it.
Now you got to deal with it. You have to deal with it. You understand what I'm saying? So, but my point really is, you have to be very careful with what you're doing because there are consequences that are going to happen.
Yeah.
I had a teacher, not a teacher, a headmistress. Her name was Muriel Ines, and she used to say, in life there's choices, and from those choices there'll be consequences, and you have to either suffer or enjoy the consequences of your actions. Something of that nature. I don't know if I worded it completely, but the choice is yours. And if you make the choice, and that's the choice you made, and the consequence now comes, you can't run away from it. You have to deal with it now.
Yeah.
And the mature way of doing things is always the best way of doing things.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, we have a question coming. Let's go with the question, please.
We have a question via Zoom. The question is asked is, what impact does a father have on their child's understanding of masculinity?
Well, studies have been said and this has been done, right? But really and truly, if you bring your children up the best you can and you try to show them what you can as far as a male is concerned, a man is concerned, and you lead them on and into what you think is you're doing what you're doing, and you could do everything you want to do, but if a male has in their mind that they are a certain way, you could say whatever you want to say to them and try to in some cases, people have tried to beat it out of them. You understand what I'm saying? And you're you're doing everything you can, showing love to your mother, showing love to the mother, showing love to everybody and all that sort of stuff. And you're, just showing them that this is what men do, so to speak. You know what I mean? You can do all of that.
Right.
You can do all of that.
And sometimes
And
people still make their own choice.
It is. You can't. Sometimes you can't. You can't direct that. You just can't. Every family deals with this, whether they know it or not.
Right.
They deal with this. Okay, and it's how you deal with it once you find out now.
That's difficult.
Okay, now that's the part. Okay. And that's what I'm talking about. You have some people who try to beat it out of their children. Now all that does is the child just now steps back and don't tell you nothing no more. Close you off. Okay? But you have to do everything you deal with, you have to deal with love. Everything you deal with, you have to deal with love. And you have to understand that if you have done your utmost best, and there's nothing more that you could see yourself have done, don't punish yourself over that no more. Okay? Because sometimes it's just nothing you could do.
Well, I think
Because
before the
wait,
next
before you
question-
move on,
Okay.
because the flip side of that is your ladies tell us the effect that you all have on the feminineness of the ladies, because we can't assume that this thing is just one way. This ain't just one way. I don't know
we
if you
have
all
both
noticed
ways.
it,
Yes.
but there's a lot of the
Yes.
other stuff going on as
Yes.
far as what's happening with the ladies are concerned.
You're right.
Okay? So, everything is always cast on the man as far as masculinity and all this sort of stuff.
It's
But what
both
about the other
sides.
stuff or the other things that's going on
Femininity.
over here? Okay? You can't talk about one and not talk about the next one now.
Yes.
Okay? You
It's
ain't gonna put
both.
me, I might not be a doctor or a psychiatrist, but you ain't put me in that boat.
It's both. It's
Okay.
both.
All right.
Let's go with the other question. I love the question coming.
The next one is explore how a father's behavior and values shape their child's views on masculinity and gender roles.
Behavior. That one there, I think that carries less weight, because what I mean by that is a man's behavior. If he's carrying on and carousing and doing whatever he's doing, I mean, he's basically, being a womanizer or whatever the case might be. That behavior there might have one effect on one child and another effect on another son. Like one son might say, "Oh, that's cool, that's nice, I love that sort of
Wow.
stuff," and then the other son will be like, "I hate him.
Because of it.
I hate him. I will never be like that. I will never be like that." You know what I mean? So you can't really say what the effects are unless you are going through studies and stuff like that. All I could do is show what I can do as far as relationships are concerned, male wise and everything else like that. Okay? And again, what's in their head and what's in their mind and what's in their bodies, you don't know.
I think too, along with showing, we have to be careful and just watching. Be careful with our children, what they are watching,
Of course.
what they are seeing, because I think it comes from somewhere, and so we have to be careful of that to make sure we are covering our children and making sure.
I didn't want to bring the Bible in this too much, right? But if you really go back, right, it's been around. Oh, it's been around. Okay? Now, it's been around, but mostly in the Bible, it talks only on the male side of things. It doesn't really touch on the female side of things, from my recollection anyway. And I'm just saying that the males, sometimes what happens to the males is the emasculinity that happens, like in the situation that the letter was spoken of, where he was degraded by the lady.
Right.
So his, no matter how high he was trying to, or whatever he's trying to do, it's coming across as though the mother is the head, the mother's a strong person, this, that, and the next. The mother got all of the say, so to speak, right? And if you have a situation like that, then it is really not going to matter so much what the male tries to do to show to develop masculinity, so to speak, because he's emasculated as soon as the lady, does what she does, and there's so many different variables to this.
Yeah.
There's so many different, and I'm not qualified to really touch on this so much. This is a type of a topic that needs to have a psychiatrist deal with, and the psychiatry and those who study minds and have done studies on this. Because you ain't gonna get to the bottom of this really trying to talk to me as a father, you know. You know who you have to talk to? You gotta talk to the children. You gotta talk to the ones that
To get into their
that
minds.
that what okay, your dad, what did your dad do? Your dad did this, your dad did that, whatever. Yeah, but why, if he did all of that, then how you gotta get it from them.
Right. The answers.
You see what I'm saying? That's really where you get to the crux of what these masculinity questions are all about, in my opinion. Again, in my opinion. I answered you, Mr. Mara.
Well, it was a question, so
Yes. It was one of the questions that we have people bringing in questions via Zoom. But now, come on, callers. You've been calling in. If we have a topic that's different from tonight, you call in and you interject your views when anything is said about a single mother. So this is the time to call. Call into the number 325-5403 all the way through 5, or toll free 300-8255. And we do appreciate the questions that's coming in via Zoom. But let's hear, maybe there's something we're leaving out. Maybe there's something that needs to be said. And that's why it's so important for you to call in and we hear from you. Another question we have is, what advice would you give to a new or expecting father?
Here we go. All right. Well, the first thing is you're gonna be scared. Okay, so don't worry about being scared. You're gonna be scared, all right? And you're gonna not know what to do, right?
Wow.
But in all honesty, your natural instincts will come about. You will naturally learn how to hold your child.
Wow.
You will naturally learn what they like to hear, or what they, I had to deal with my kids when they were in that non-sleeping mode, and I had to get up in the middle of the night because I was just I was more active with that sort of stuff, and my wife was so tired. Oh my God, she was so tired. I mean, it would have been cruel of me not to.
Not to
Okay, let me
help
just put it
out.
that way. All right,
Not to help out.
Yeah, I would have been stoned. Just a joke. But I would get up, and it took me a while, and I started singing to them. And I started singing to them, and when I started singing them 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm walking around. And in about 5-10 minutes, they'll go to sleep.
Right.
And then another 2 hours, they're up again. But I'm saying you will learn it.
Right.
If you love them, you will learn it. Okay? There are books out there. Of course, there are books out there. You could read and you could do all that sort of stuff. But unless you are putting it in practice, it only can just sit there on the paper and look at you. Okay? You have to really take it on. Know that you're going to be scared. Know that you're going to make mistakes.
Okay.
Know that you're going to make mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's what you're going to do with the mistakes to recover from the mistakes. Okay? And if you have a family that's supporting you, and they love and respect, and everything is there, and it's the child is just surrounded by love, you can make mistakes. You could actually make mistakes, and it's okay.
You know what I want to tell them? I want to say to the new father, it's not about you anymore.
That's the truth. That is the truth, especially if it's a girl. Oh, God, no.
It's really not about you. And I think that the sooner we realize that, and love does that, that you actually enjoy it. You enjoy not being able to go on a trip to make sure your kids are ready for
and
school.
You have to evolve, okay? And fathers, young fathers, you have to evolve. You have to understand that hanging out with the boys and playing all that sort of stuff is going to have its place. It can't be the number one rule anymore. Your priorities will shift if you're going to be serious about being a father. Your priorities will shift, and you have to make your priorities in line with what it is to bring that child up in the best way you know how to. Because if you keep going out there and you keep doing everything and being out there and you're not around, you become an absent father, or you just want to show up and try to be the father when you show up, and you showing up with gifts and that sort of stuff. That's not what being a father is all about. Being a father is being there all the time. And if you're lucky enough that you can spend that time with the child and watch them grow and watch them take their steps and that sort of stuff, and have a great relationship with the mother, whether you're with them or not. And this is where the mothers have to be very, very understanding and open to not shutting down the father if he is really, really honestly trying to do the best that he can do. please let them do it. Please let the fathers do it. And I'll be honest with you, Tamara. I told you this when we was talking. 1 hour is gonna fly. 1 hour is gonna fly, especially on topic like this. 1 hour is gonna fly. Okay, so my suggestion to do, not for me, don't bring me, you don't have to be me, but start to look and see if you could get the psychiatrists and those types of people in, so you could get a different level of discussion.
Right.
Yeah, you brought me in for this low. I'm the foundation discussion.
Okay.
But now you get a little further, you get a little deeper.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because this is a very important topic for the entire nation, and I am certainly not the person who can lay down the foundation for the entire nation.
No, this is a foundation right now.
Yeah.
So what I would say,
We have to.
Tamara, you can go ahead.
We have to start somewhere, and like you said, this is the start of many to come. Jackie, it's a comment. It's not a question that someone sent in. It's a comment. And, we started off by saying the role of a man in the home and as a father. And the comment that this young man made is that he was blessed to have two good role models in his life. He said his mother and his father were divorced. So he has a father and he has a stepfather who raised him, whom he loved. But he also pointed out that by having these two role models, it made him now pick from each one of those men in his life for him to be an impactful father and husband in his home. Because he said one father, for instance, drank. He knew he wasn't going to drink because he realized that it altered his personality. He went from a loving father to, not quite the person that he wanted to be. And then he said he learned from his stepfather what affection is. Even though he was a boy, his stepfather would still hug him and say, boy, I love you.
Yeah.
And that's what he was getting from his own father, whom he loved him, but just didn't have the capacity to show love. So he wanted to say that the role of a man in the household, it can formulate you as a man. But once you become a man, you have to now pick through these role models, pick through these roles and let it comprise you to be the man you wanted to be. So he really wanted to share that. And I thank you for sharing that via Zoom.
What I want to say here is as a new father, I think you really should, and sometimes we don't want to say it because we think a show, we want to leave out spiritual stuff. But a real father, advice to you would be the foundation. Use the manual for us. We have a manual to go by. And the thing that makes everything so difficult for us as human beings, we want to use the manual for the television. We want to use it to make the coffee. We want to use it to cook the chicken sauce. But we don't want to use it for our life. And that is what's causing all of the fiction, is because we set your foundation. Make sure you give the spiritual food to the spiritual part of our body.
And that's where I'm telling you about when I spoke about evenly yoked, okay? Because you have a situation where, unfortunately, in this country, Christianity does no longer holds the hold it used to have, okay? Church no longer holds the hold it used to have, okay? If you go around and you look at the churches and that sort of stuff, you'll see that the congregation sizes
different.
are dropping,
Yeah.
and you could see that they're elderly, and so it's not as gripping as it once was, and that's sad. And you have to remember something now. A lot of the kids go away to all parts of the world, and they're exposed to all different types of religions.
Yes.
Okay, and it gets to a point where you get to a point where you're so intelligent that you're saying to yourself, I can't believe in that no more. You understand what I'm saying? So where the manual is good for you and I, you have to understand, you got to make sure that the person that you are having the child with, that they're on the same wavelength as you, because that's where the issue comes into play. If you're not on the same wavelength, and this goes right down to this goes right down, even if they attend church, do they attend the same church?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
So important.
I'm saying this. You could be Christians and go to church, but you go to one church and the wife go to the next church, and you ain't seeing eye to
it's
eye on
not
stuff.
good, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, the manual is there. We know it's there, but not everyone wants to use
We
it.
need
That's
to
all I'm
use
saying.
it.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? So there it is. That's what I'll put on that. That's the bow I'll put on that. Okay.
Let's go into the third part. I got to go into the third part for you of the speech. He says, I've learned as a father that it is okay to be fathered. I still need to have outside influences and godly influences, because even though I'm a father, I still need that covering. He said, this is not the life as a father I had planned, but the word says, God knows the plan he has for me, and the days were fashioned for me. God says he'll love with an everlasting love, and so will I. He said, you can call on him and he will answer you and deliver you. And that's the lesson that I want my children to know, that they can call on me as still the priest of their home. I think what really stuck out to me, why I had to read that little tidbit to you guys, is he said he needed to be fathered even though he is a father. So does the fathering never end, Christian, or?
Only when you hit the grave, I guess. You know, I'll tell you something, and you are never you never stop from being a son either. You have to understand. You know, a mother or a father, as long as they're living, will always look at you as a 12-year-old, 6-year-old, or whatever. You know, that's just what happens when you look at your 30-something-year-old child. You honestly sometimes see them as 12. You still see them as 12. And you have to be careful with that, because you have to make sure that you're not treating them as if they're 12.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to talk to you.
That's against the word.
Yeah, they ain't going to talk to you now.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, so I just feel as though I'm glad you read that last part.
Yes.
Because that really sews it up and ties it up really nicely, because he comes
found
full
himself.
circle. He
Yeah.
comes full circle with understanding the role of his role and the role of the real Father,
Yes,
the God
wow.
in heaven, the one that sent his son. With his grace and mercy. See now, you see,
I have a
know,
smile.
okay, now, hold on now. So you know, but I know that we're running out of time, and I just want to say thank you so much for having me on board, and I really enjoyed this, and I hope that it was beneficial for those that were listening, and thank you so much, and it's nice meeting you. And tomorrow, I look forward to seeing and hearing from you, and tell your hubby I said hi, hey?
Will do. You know, Christian, we can't tell you thank you enough for, coming on the show. And really, we want the male perspective. On Table of Change, we want to hear from the men. We want you to call in, because this is a topic that directly impacts you. And we don't want the show to just be a woman's point of view. We want to hear from you. So next time, be ready to call in, guys. You're going to call into those numbers, 325-5403, and be a part of this conversation. And like you said, Christian, this can't be a one-off. This can't maybe even be a two-off. But we want to now, like we say, Jackie, not just we just want to bring the issue to the table and try and solve it.
Yes,
but
yes,
certainly
share.
we want to have the issue. We want to have the conversation, because Christian made it clear to us that this is not a one-time fix, right? This can't be a one-time only. This problem has been going on and on in terms of single mothers and fathers. And it's not a battle, because at the end of the day, we're in this together. We're in this together to bring up these children to be members of this society, to be loved, to feel as one. So we need our children, we need our fathers. We know the importance of the role of the man in the home,
Yes.
but we're just reminding of what that role is.
Yes.
Thank you again, Christian. This is Table of Change. My name is Tamara Fox-Smith.
I'm Jacqueline Fernanda Moxie. See you next week on Table of Change.